Your business is dependent on the level of conversational skill that you and your team are able to hold. You see, a single conversation had between either a client and a staff member, or a client and the owner, has the power to retain a client for a further 3 months or quietly begin the process of a client leaving. There is no in between. You need to understand this. There is no in between. The businesses with the highest retention rates and the strongest client cultures aren't always the ones with the best facilities, the most expensive equipment, or even the most knowledgeable owners. They're just the businesses with people who can have the best conversations. This is why success isn't always linked with what you know or how good you are at something. There's a lot of idiots with really successful businesses simply because of what they believe between their ears. And so this module isn't about becoming a salesperson. It's about becoming someone who clients trust because they feel understood, challenged, and guided. And so there's 3 conversational skills that I need you to be aware of and start getting better at. First one is active listening. Now this one might seem a little obvious, but hear me out. Most people don't listen. They're usually waiting for their turn to speak, especially in our industry, because we know what we know. We can anticipate pretty much what's going to come out of our clients' mouths. And usually we're repeating ourselves a lot. But as practitioners, we're often guilty of hearing the problem and immediately jumping to try and create a solution for it. The problem with this is that people are rarely actually telling you the real problem. They're telling you the problem that they feel safest to express to you, which is usually the problem that they know you want to hear because it's what they expect to talk about in your industry. This is the typical thing of like, I know I should eat a little bit better, but I don't. Like, that's not the problem. They're telling you the socially acceptable problem. And so it's only when they feel genuinely listened to at a deeper level that they'll tell you what's really going on. Active listening is about becoming more curious than you are bothered about coming across as clever or able to provide solutions to people's problems. This is what allows you to start asking more questions and doing uncomfortable things like allowing for silence, letting people finish their thoughts, and letting them or giving them the time to actually explore at a deeper level. This can feel very uncomfortable if you don't do this on a regular basis. Pay attention to the words that they repeat. Pay attention to the emotions that they attach to certain stories or things, and pay attention to the things that they avoid talking about. The better you listen here, the better your prescriptions will become later. You're trying to locate the root of the problem and not trying to provide the solution to the surface level problem. When you do this well, it presents the opportunity for your next skill, which is the art of mirroring. This is one of the simplest ways to actually get down to root level issues and build rapport with your client in order for them to feel safe. This doesn't mean copying body language or trying to manipulate the conversation to get what you want. It simply means reflecting back what you've heard. So not just the client knows they've been understood, but they're presented with the opportunity to understand whether or not what they said is actually true. A good example of this is if a client says, maybe this just isn't for me. I've been trying to grow my business for years. I've tried everything and nothing is working. So rather than immediately offering advice or defending my program, I'm becoming more curious. So I might say, I'm curious, when you say, maybe this just isn't for me, it sounds like you've started believing that you're the exception, that everyone else is changing, but somehow there's something unique and special about your situation that means you can't. And notice what happened there. I'm not solving their problem. I'm demonstrating that I've understood and most likely revealed something in them that's probably not true to them, and yet they said it. When clients hear back what they've just said out loud and it doesn't feel true to their true nature of who they are and who they want to be, they start to feel uncomfortable because I'm reflecting back to them a version of themselves that's had to adopt a certain belief about themselves that's usually been imposed on by somebody else. Because what we understand in this situation is that no amount of strategy or implementation is going to change what they fundamentally believe about themselves at the root level, which is that they can't change whilst everybody else can. They need grounding in truth, because the truth is that everybody can change. That's the truth. And so we now want to go deeper and underneath that belief system to uncover why they believe that in the first place. Usually when we find out these things, it turns out that a parent once said to them, you can't have this because that's not how the world works. And they've carried that around with them for their entire life. The same is true for you as a business owner. You will have your subconscious beliefs that were imposed on you by other people, and you need to start getting curious about those, just like you need to start getting curious about your clients' problems. And that's where the real conversation begins. You don't have to be a therapist, but you do have to actively listen to your clients, be curious about their problems, and help them uncover the subconscious beliefs that are keeping them stuck. Lastly, I want to move on to authority and boundaries. One of the biggest issues gym owners, coaches, wellness clinic owners have is allowing money to influence standards. You see, if your business feels financially unstable, it's really easy to compromise. You overlook red flags in clients, you accept behaviors in your culture that you know aren't actually acceptable, you bend your own rules because you're worried about losing clients, and in the short term, it feels like you're protecting the business. But long term, and in reality, it's actually weakening it. One client with poor boundaries can consume more time, energy, and emotional capacity than several great clients combined. And so my advice here is simple. Know who you are, know your values, know your standards, and protect them. Clients don't lose respect because of your boundaries. They lose respect when boundaries change depending on who's in front of you. Your standards tell clients what your business is for. Your boundaries protect the culture that you've worked really hard to build. And whatever you don't account for here in culture, you're going to have to make up in sales. And so if you tolerate poor fit clients, inconsistent behavior, lack of accountability, you'll constantly be having to replace people who leave because the culture no longer supports the transformation that you're trying to create. So in my experience, it's far easier to keep great clients than it is to continually attract new ones. Sometimes the highest value sales decisions you'll ever make is saying no. And it's not arrogance, it's discernment. As you become more experienced, your discernment will need to improve alongside your ability to communicate. Every client who walks through your door should leave you asking one question. Can we genuinely help this person if they're willing to follow our process? If the answer is yes, then great, new client. If the answer is no, have the integrity to tell them. Your reputation will be built just as much by the people you choose not to work with as the people you do. And so the goal is not to sign everyone. The goal is to build a business that is full of the people who are going to follow your process all the way through, because that's where transformation happens. Lastly, I want to talk to you about governing spirits in and across industries. In the health, wellness, medical sector combined, we see the spirits of pride, lust, and envy wreak havoc across businesses, teams, and clients. What do I mean by this? And why am I bringing this up? Well, every gym culture seems to have trainers that sleep with clients. It's the age-old stereotype, right? The unhappy wife sleeping with her personal trainer, or the medical convention that just got out of hand, affairs off the back of consuming alcohol, or the prideful nature of thinking healing is completely in our hands, that our own intellect makes us somewhat special or powerful, or in the gym industry that our body is something to be worshipped. See, these things might sound harmless, but once these spirits are in operation inside your business, what will come with it is chaos. And so if you have no boundaries, the chaos will amplify, and you'll have to start putting out fires in parts of your business that you never anticipated having to put fires out in the first place. You got into this because you wanted to help people heal, but what are you doing to protect that?